You hear it all the time, right? America's national debt is completely out of control. So you've got to wonder, how hasn't the whole thing just collapsed? Well, the answer isn't what you think. It's not about cutting spending or balancing the books. Nope. It's a story that's way more interesting. A history of audacious, frankly kind of shocking solutions that have completely rewritten the rules of the global economy again and again. Okay, so first let's just try to wrap our heads around the number. We're talking about over $34 trillion. I mean, that's a number so huge, it doesn't even feel real, does it? It sounds like something from a sci-fi movie, but believe me, it is very, very real. Possible. How can a country get so close to the edge time and time again and somehow just find a way out? Well, what's so fascinating is that it's not random luck. There's a pattern here, almost like a secret American formula for getting out of an impossible jam. And to see this formula in action, we have to go back, way back. Let's start in the 1930s, the Great Depression. You know, we think of it as just this massive economic downturn, but at its core, it was a debt crisis that pushed the United States to the absolute brink of failure. And the solution they came up with, it was so radical, you're going to have a hard time believing it actually happened. So, picture this. It's 1933. The entire system is coming apart at the seams. Banks are failing left and right, and people are, understandably, terrified. So what do? They do the only rational thing they can think of. They sprint to the banks to trade their paper dollars for the one thing they still trust, real physical gold. But here's the kicker. The government did not have enough gold to cover all those dollars, not even close. A total catastrophic meltdown was just moments away. And that's when President Franklin D. Roosevelt pulled off something absolutely stunning. I mean, a truly bold plan. First, he drops this bombshell, Executive Order 6102. What did it do? It made it a crime for you, a private citizen, to own gold. Just think about that for a second. Owning gold, something people have done for thousands of years, was suddenly illegal. Then, every American was ordered to hand over their gold to the government for paper dollars. But that wasn't even the craziest part. Then came the real masterstroke. So check this out. Once the government had all this gold safely in its possession, it just changed the price by decree. The price of an ounce of gold went from $20.67 to $35. Poof, just like that. And with that single move, overnight, the pile of gold the government was sitting on shot up in value by almost 70%. I mean, let's be clear about what happened here. The government didn't earn this money. It didn't come from new factories or taxes. It literally just took an asset from its own people, waved a magic wand to make it more valuable, and pocketed a massive profit. This one move instantly beefed up the government's balance sheet and made its debt look a whole lot smaller. The result? Total and complete dominance on the world stage. All that confiscated gold got shipped to a brand new impenetrable fortress in Kentucky. You've heard of it, Fort Knox. At one point, the U.S. had something like 20,000 tons of gold stashed there. That's about 70% of all the official gold on Earth. Fort Knox wasn't just a vault. It became this giant monument to this wild strategy, a symbol that the U.S. government would do literally whatever it takes to solve a debt crisis. Okay, so fast forward a few decades. Remember that promise from the 30s? The one that said foreign countries could still trade their dollars for U.S. gold? Well, those chickens were about to come home to roost. Big time. And it was going to cause another huge crisis. So by the 1960s, U.S. debt is just exploding. You've got the Vietnam War, massive social programs, the spending is out of control. And other countries, especially France, are looking at this and getting nervous. They're sitting on these giant piles of U.S. dollars, and they start calling America's bluff, saying, okay, we want the gold you promised us. And by 1971, it's déjà vu all over again. The U.S. is facing the exact same nightmare. There just isn't enough gold in the vault. So what happens? President Nixon does what seems to be the American presidential playbook in a crisis. He just changes the rules of the game. He gets on TV and tells the whole world that the U.S. is temporarily closing the gold window. Yeah, temporarily. That temporary suspension, of course, is still in effect today. It was basically a default, a quiet, elegant default, but a default on the whole world nonetheless. And boom, just like that, the U.S. dollar was untethered. It was set free. It became what we call a fiat currency, which is just a fancy way of saying it's backed by, well, nothing. Nothing physical anyway. It's backed only by your trust and my trust in the U.S. government. And this move gave the government a superpower, the ability to create money out of thin air and rack up debt without any hard limit. Okay, let's pause here for a second. We've got these two wild, incredible stories. So what's the connection? Well, when you put them together, you start to see it. You see the pattern. That secret American formula for getting out of crises that should have been impossible to solve. Here's how it works. Step 1, the country runs up an absolutely insane amount of debt. Step 2, things get so bad that the whole system is at risk of just collapsing. And then, step 3, the US unleashes some kind of extraordinary go-it-alone solution that completely changes the rules for everybody on the planet. We're not talking about small adjustments here. Seizing all the gold, tearing up the gold standard, these were radical, system-wide resets. But wait, you might be thinking, why does the US get to do this? Why can't other countries just pull these moves? The answer is simple. The US dollar is the sun in the financial solar system. It's the world's reserve currency. The entire global economy is so deeply tied to it that when America decides to change the rules, everyone else basically has to just go along with it and end up footing part of the bill. Which brings us right back to where we started, today. That debt number, over $34 trillion, is at an all-time high. So this whole pattern we've been talking about, this isn't just a history lesson. It might just be a roadmap for what's coming next. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's that whenever the United States is staring over a financial cliff, it finds a way out. It uses a combination of creativity, raw power, and just pure audacity. There's a great phrase in Brazil for this, dá jeito. It means to find a clever, maybe unconventional way to solve a seemingly impossible problem. And that's exactly what the US has done. And every single time, the solution has completely remade the global economy. So that leaves us with one last really big question. Staring at a $34 trillion debt pile, if history teaches us anything, the question isn't if another one of these radical solutions is on the horizon. The real question is, what is it going to be? And believe it or not, the next chapter of this incredible story involves the US linking the dollar to something else entirely, oil. And that, of course, changed everything all over again.